All right. Here we go. Happy Monday. It is Monday, April 19th, 2021. This is Legit Fantasy Baseball. I am Coach TJ. I am in for King Mike L tonight. Sorry for the delay. Anyone who was on at 7, we're a couple minutes late. I had to learn on the spot how to get this up and running. I'm going to bring in Joey Paranormal right now. Boom. Joey, how you doing?
Not bad. Yourself?
Outstanding. I'm doing better than the Yankees.
I wasn't going to go there, but if you want to open it up.
It's notable. They're throwing baseballs on the field in the 8th inning.
I didn't like that. Yeah. It's
bad. It's good to see some passion out of the fan base. I'd like to see some passion out of the players, but
yeah,
it's not good. So King Mike's not here tonight. So as you know, it was like a late call. Can you host the show? Yeah. So of course, usually you and I are the talent, right? We come on here, he asks the questions, we give the answers, and then we go from there. So to say that I was prepared to host tonight would be absolutely false. So I'm sitting there having dinner with my wife, and I said, babe, got to host the show. I don't know what to talk about off the jump. And she says, well, the first thing we should talk about is A-Rod. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with A-Rod, no longer engaged to Jennifer Lopez. Your thoughts on A-Rod?
I mean, as a baseball player, I kind of always liked A-Rod. As a person, I mean, he is who he is. You know, he obviously, I'm not going to throw stones because I was a big fan of David Ortiz, and both of them I think were kind of on the same training regimen, if we'll say. So, I mean, that whole. He's been married like 3 or 4 times. I know J-Lo's been married 3 or 4 times. And it wasn't going to last. I'm just glad they didn't end up actually buying a team before they split. But he was, I don't know. He's one of those guys where he was so talented. He was so good. He had such a great career, and he ruined it at the end by everything leaking with the biogenesis scandal. With him being found out to obviously have used, which you could tell by the end of his career. I mean, he was like Bonds. He was a completely different looking player. Yeah, I grew up loving the guy, and there was a good probably day and a half where I was really excited that I thought he was coming to the Red Sox. Just like Mark Teixeira. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
So here's my thing with A-Rod. When he was, remember it was Nomar and Jeter in A-Rod, and I think that we always had the discussion around here that it was Nomar Jeter, and we all kind of just knew A-Rod was better than both of them combined. Mm-hmm. But he was just in Texas launching bombs at that point. When he came to the Yankees, I was excited at first. I never felt like there was a less authentic person though. Like there was something about even his media presence, and there was a lot of media of him naturally because it's New York, but also because he sucked in the playoffs year after year. And it was he's just so robotic that you could like predict the answers before he gave them because he was just so robotic. But this is the ultimate fail. I mean, really, I don't care if you go for 30 in the playoffs. If you're dating J-Lo, you're engaged to J-Lo, you do not ruin that. Like that's just like. It really bothered me today. When I found out, I didn't even know. It's not like I follow these kinds of. You don't follow so much stuff, and definitely A-Rod's love life is not in that. But he was a hell of a player, and now he's just like another one of these Hollywood guys that's like in and out of marriages and all this other stuff. So
yeah,
I said we'd do it, and we did it.
I do want to point out to one of my favorite stories that I've heard about A-Rod. So when he went to the Yankees, he went over. Apparently, he went over Jeter's, his pad, whatever. And he goes to Jeter and he turns on the TV. He's like, "Oh, so what station's the game on? Do you have the baseball package?" And Jeter's like, "No, why would I have the baseball package?" Apparently, A-Rod just lived and breathed baseball. And that's one of the things I liked about him as a ball player is that he wasn't just like, I play baseball because I'm good at it. He loved the sport. He watched the sport. He was invested in what the other teams were doing. He lived the game.
Oh, that's cool. And it's not surprising that Jeter didn't watch baseball.
Yeah.
Jeter was just good at baseball.
Yeah.
You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to bring up, like, I got 6 or 8 guys that I want to talk about that are off to good starts. And I want to know if you think they're going to continue the good start. And if these are guys that maybe you make a move for on your fantasy league if someone will trade them, although I doubt most of these guys that I'm going to bring up, no one's going to want to trade.
Yeah.
Just whether you feel, or maybe it's the time to sell high on some of these guys. And the first one is JD Martinez, because JD Martinez is probably American League MVP. If it, 2 weeks in, he's off to a red hot start. The Red Sox are winning games, unfortunately, and he's got 6 home runs and 20 RBIs super early. What do you think?
I think that he is dependent on his crutch. That's the iPad. And you're seeing that now that they're letting the iPad back in the dugout, he's able to analyze the bats. He's able to see what pitchers are doing, how they're attacking other hitters in the lineup. You're seeing, compared to last year when he didn't have that tool, how much better of a hitter he is when he can actually break down at bats. I think for him, if you have him, it's a no-brainer that you hold on to him. You hold on to him all year. It does suck because I have his stats up here, but I don't have him readily up in my fantasy league what he's considered as, if it's utility, if it's outfield. Either way, he's going to kind of limit you with maneuverability through the lineup. But I mean, if you have him, I mean, you don't get points for putouts or assists. You get points for home runs and RBIs. So yeah,
you didn't have to take a first, second, or third round pick to get him in most leagues. Like he was sliding down. I bet you if you look at your standings, a lot of the guys that have him on the roster, their team's off to a good start, because when you get that kind of production from a middle round pick, that's cool. Did you realize? I don't even know who this guy is. Ramon Laurenco has 8 steals right now. Is that crazy?
Is that the center fielder from Athletics?
Yes.
Yeah, he is. He's one of those guys where I could, and I don't know if that's who you were meaning to bring up next or not, but just because you did mention him, I love Ramon Laureano. Famously, I think 2019 he threw a guy out from probably like 10 miles away at home. I mean, if you look it up, he literally guns a guy from the center field wall. It might have been the Coliseum. I don't remember. But from the center field wall, guns a guy, an absolute strike to home plate. This guy has an incredible arm. He's fast. He can hit. He's bound for a breakout year. And looking at it, he's not jumping off the page with 2 doubles, 2 triples though. That's a good. Yeah.
Fast, huh?
Yeah, he's quick. He's actually slugging 412. Man, I mean 728 OPS. I mean he's hitting it, just not getting over the fence. So, but I love Laureano.
Second guy I want to talk about, Nelson Cruz. I feel like Nelson Cruz has been playing since I was in like kindergarten, and right now he's hitting 390. His OPS is over 1. Nelson Cruz, in it for the long haul, or is this just like he got off to a good start, he's going to tail off?
He's one of those guys. I think he's streaky at this point in his career. I mean, there's a reason a guy like Edwin Encarnacion is still a free agent, and I think Nelson Cruz is steadily heading to that kind of designation as well. Prolific power numbers, but I mean, he still could hit 30, but I mean, you're going to get a low average. You're not going to get much more outside of home runs, RBIs, and maybe runs scored because of the home runs he's hitting. So I don't love him as an option. Again, I think he's limited by his position as well. So he's definitely not someone. I mean, if you have him, you're enjoying it now, but it's not someone I'd be relying on all season to produce a high number of points.
Another older guy who I feel like was young and then he got old, right? So we're going to talk about Justin Turner. So Justin Turner is 400 right now with power. He's tied in the National League lead in RBIs. His OPS is 1.2. I feel like he was young, and now he's 36. Like I feel like there was no prime there. It's just Justin Turner. What do you think?
I mean, as a person, I love Justin Turner because I know a lot of people will maybe hate me for this, and I get the pandemic and it's awful, and but I still think that him just going, oh, I tested positive for COVID. Yeah, I'm still gonna go out on the field. My team just won a World Series. Sorry, everybody. Nobody knows what that situation is like. So everyone who shamed him, I think they would have probably done the same thing. Because he was probably one of the reasons that they had that crazy run in the postseason, because he was on fire. But I like Justin Turner, but again, I think age can limit his output. He's off to a hot start. His OPS is off the charts. Holy crap!
Right.
But I don't know if it's sustainable. He's another one where it's nice if it's nice to ride him. But I don't know if he'd be able to continue that. But it looks like he has some position flexibility. So if in your league he's got multiple positions, I'd hold on to him. I wouldn't count on him having a high output, but I'd hold on to him just for the fact that you can plug and play him kind of around the lineup.
So one more guy in their 30s, because I wasn't going to bring him up, but I was watching SportsCenter this morning, and the way that Tim Kirchin was talking about this next guy, I got to the TV late. I thought he was talking about Babe Ruth, and he was talking about Eric Hosmer. This, he's talking about he's been hitting line drives, and he's been squaring the ball for a decade. And I'm like, okay, who are we talking about? And it's Eric Hosmer. Let me chime in. I think he's going to continue to hit for a high average. I do. I think that ballpark lends itself to a high average for a hitter who uses the whole field and hits the gaps like he does. Right now he's hitting 344. I mean, he's not going to hit that high, but I think 310 to 320 is where he's going to settle. And he's always had some power. He's never a 40 home run guy, but I think you can feel good if he's your everyday guy there.
Yeah, I'd agree. If you got him kind of a late round and you picked high on other infield spots, he's been that guy that ever since he went to San Diego, you've just been waiting for him to just turn it on like he did with Kansas City. And like you said too, even when he was at kind of his peak, he wasn't a huge homer guy, but he was an on-base guy. He could slap the ball. He was just he wasn't a prototypical first baseman, but he was a great hitter. And ever since he went to San Diego, it's kind of been, he's been kind of a bust because they paid him a lot of money. But right now, I mean, especially if you got him late, he's a perfect pickup because he's doing a little bit of everything that you'd want a kind of a mid-rounder to be doing.
See, he's kind of like most fantasy leagues now have went into having a utility spot, whether it's our league has 2 DHs or what some people have, I know, middle infield, corner infield. He's kind of built for that role, like, because you're going to get professional hitting out of him all year, and those are generally not guys. You're not going to take your DH in the 3rd round, right? So when you can fill out your lineup with a guy like him, he's a professional hitter. He's off to a good start. There's at bats. He's going to have at bats. I like him a lot. So here's a guy I picked in my draft, and I always wait on starting pitching. I'm not that guy that takes an ace, but so I picked him because his name was Italian and we were getting late in the draft and I just needed some arms. And right now he is 3-0 with a 2.1 ERA, and his name is Aaron Savali. Is that how he says it?
That is a good question. Honestly, I thought you were going somewhere else with that one. So I was thinking you were going to say Senzatella. But Aaron Savelli. So that is a name that I am actually not very familiar with.
So I can tell you he's from Connecticut, which I learned on draft night because someone else in the draft room shouted out, "Oh, he's a local guy." Okay. All right, cool. Right now he's carrying my fantasy staff. Like he really is, because I've got some busts on there right now. Patrick Corbin's been terrible. Italian for the Yankees has been terrible. So Savali right now is ranked on CBS the 12th best player overall in terms of however they do their little ratings there. So
I thought you were saying a different last name, but I was spelling it like I heard it. But yeah, I know exactly who this is. Yeah, but continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So yeah, he's only 25. Do you have a book on him? Do you know what the deal is with this kid?
I don't really know a lot about him, but I am familiar with him mainly from so again, I'm going to show kind of my age and my nerdism, but I play MLB The Show every year. And again, those games obviously like Madden, like they're not they're not like a great like grading of prospects of players, but Savali is always a guy that in simulations pitches well. He's got a high potential grade, and looking at his stats, I mean, it's there and it's been there. He's another one of those. Cleveland has a good stockpile of young arms. Savali is one of them. I think there was Plesac was another guy that's over there. Obviously, McKenzie is another kid that I think they're starting this year. But they have a lot of really good young arms in that rotation, and he's one of them. And yeah, I mean, I'd be rolling with him too, especially if he's anchoring the rotation.
So speaking of MLB The Show, I used to like to – so – I never really got into playing video games online, right? So I buy one a year, and I just kind of rotate between baseball, basketball, and football. Right now I'm playing 2K, and then 2K I'll play it this year. Next year I'll buy Madden and so I'm always the Yankees, and I always play a season, and I enjoy myself for 162 hours of relative quiet, and it's really good. But when there was a kid on Baltimore who I could never hit, like I could never hit, and I never knew who he was. His name was Jake Arrieta. He was like their fifth starter in the game, and I just could never hit this kid. And sometimes I would say to myself, like, the game's not going to let you go 150 and 12, right? So you feel like there's some scheduled losses in there when you're playing MLB The Show. But I feel like, and you play Baltimore 20 times, I would lose to Arrieta 3 times, 4 times. I had no idea the guy was going to turn out to be freaking Cy Young, but it's almost unbelievable that like the video game kind of nailed his potential before like Baseball Tonight did.
Yeah, it's scary how that works, but so one thing I always like to talk about when I talk about how video games they judge and they pick players and they scout players is these developers, they send scouts out and they spend a lot of time with teams, with players, researching stats, researching young guys, and they actually make pretty good judgments and biases and picks and calls based on sorry, I'm getting distracted. This thing's going off and it's all like sorts of messed up. So it's just like, I mean, seriously, look at this. It's blown up like a balloon. I mean, it's been bothering me for the last 2 hours because it keeps sliding and it just keeps doing this and I can't figure it out. So long as I fumble with this, but yeah, so sports games have a long history of being able to really get in there and make great scouting decisions and calls on young players. It's crazy, but these developers spend a lot of money to make sure their games are accurate. And Madden's another big one too. I mean, everyone always likes to, where am I in Madden? Am I getting a 99 rating or what's my this? What's my that? So, yeah, it is actually, I mean, that's why I play the games too. You get a familiarization with some of the guys and it gets you kind of familiar with who's young, who's talented and who you might want on your team 3-4 years down the road.
And you get to see how, so in NBA 2K, and I know it's a baseball show, but it's amazing how they pretty much nail the standings. And I'm not talking about the Eastern Conference because I'm the Sixers. I looked at the Western Conference and they pretty much nail the freaking standings. Like their ratings are so it really, you can tell there's a lot of effort. It's not just grabbing guessing numbers. And in baseball, that's got to be super hard because there's 1 million players in the major leagues. There's just 1,000 guys on rosters. It's got to be like extra work. One last guy, and I don't think the question really here is buy high or don't buy high, but does Jacob deGrom, do you think he like doesn't talk to the guys on the offense? Do you think he like dislikes the actual people on his team, or do you think he's comfortable going out there throwing gems and taking losses?
I'll tell you what, he's not buying any of them watches at the end of the season. I'd hate to think that he's, I don't really think that there's any kind of, animosity. If anything, I think the animosity comes from maybe a front office or coaching position, that they're not putting better talent around him. But as long as he gets paid, I'm sure he's fine. If we're being honest, the balloon's filling up again too. If you're hearing the weird vibrating sound, I swear it's a blood pressure monitor. It's nothing else funky going on. But as long as he gets paid, his stats are good. I mean, we talked about it before. Wins and losses don't mean much anymore. So, if he goes, I mean, what did he go? He had 1 year where he won the Cy Young and he was, I think it might have been, let's see, he was 15-10, 10-9. I think he won at 11-8 in 2019. And I mean, so you look at deGrom winning at 11-8 in 2019. I mean, he got no run support. And you look at Rick Porcello, who won it at 22-4, who arguably had no reason being in the conversation of Cy Young, let alone winning it. I think this thing's about to blow up.
That is crazy that Rick Porcello won a Cy Young.
I can't believe it. I honestly, give me 1 second though. I'm gonna step out for a second. I'll be back.
Do what you gotta do. So I'm going to start. So I'm going to be here all by myself right now. Let's go over a couple of games. Tampa Bay and Kansas City. They're about to start. Pull this up real quick right here. So two guys. So Danny Duffy's off to a good start, and the guy Fleming's off to a good start also. Both lefties. So keep that in mind if you got some left-handed bats that maybe are like you're iffy. Do I start the guy tonight? Do I not? I can tell you in Kansas City, Salvador Perez has been the best hitting catcher in baseball so far for the first couple of weeks. Lucked out with him. There's like two ways to treat catchers, right, in fantasy baseball. Either you're going to straight up punt the position, or you got to be one of the first guys to take them. So in this case, I was one of the first guys to take him. Right now, CBS has him, as their 61st ranked player overall, which doesn't sound high, but it is when you consider that there's like 25 starting positions on a fantasy baseball team. So he's been good. If you want to go by the line, I mean, it's so tough to play a game like this. I'll tell you that Tampa Bay is 4-10 against the spread, so do it that way you will. They're underdogs. It's hard to talk by yourself about the Rays and the Royals, but I did it. Salvador Perez is my guy.
Yeah, I think it's I'm pretty surprised. I guess surprised shouldn't be the word, but I'm surprised at how well he's coming around. Because I know he's kind of had some off couple of off years, but yeah, he's a guy that you wanted to take. You wanted him to be one of the first catchers off the board. And if he was available, kind of like that weird end of the first half, beginning of like the second half of the draft, he's really paying dividends for people who drafted him.
I got him at a good spot. So one of the things I tried to do this year, and it seems like it's my team had a monster week last week. I didn't end up winning my matchup because the other kid's team went nuts. But I like Perez because for a catcher, he gets a lot of at bats. He bats in the top of the order. So a lot of times when I'm trying to fill out my lineup with some of these positions that are like questionable, where they're not super deep, if I can at least get a guy that bats at the top of the order, so I can just you'll get runs scored, above and beyond a guy who's batting eighth, right? So yeah. Perez has been really good. Tonight in Anaheim, you got Dylan Bundy. I feel like Dylan Bundy pitches like 4 times a week, and I know that's not true.
I think we just catch him every Monday.
Right? You got Texas and the Angels in Anaheim, and the Angels are favored, of course. What do you like in that?
Oh, I take the Angels every day. I'm really rooting for the Angels. I like them in this matchup. Bundy's actually been pitching pretty well, and back when he was with the Orioles, he was a regarded prospect. So again, I mean, his ceiling's still not high, but I'd take the Angels over the Rangers. The Rangers are they really don't have a team. They're a softball team at best, especially with some of their hitters.
I mean, you just look at the guys. The batting averages in that lineup are pretty much offensive. Like really, there's nobody hitting over 230.
Well, yeah, David Dahl, Willie Calhoun. I mean, these are guys that Dahl was a good hitter in Coors Field. They just hit homers or strike out. It's really bad. And there's just, looking at the roster quick, there's really, Ronald Guzman, another guy that kind of just hits home runs. They're literally fielding Chris Davis, who is the epitome of like, will give you 45 home runs with a 170 average and probably drive in 60 RBIs out of those 45 home runs.
Mm-hmm. Guys like Chris Davis would be good pinch hitters on playoff teams. Yeah. Like the Yankees used to do that thing back when they were good, where they would have they would just have a guy down there they had Canseco down there for a couple of years, where he's coming in to swing for the fences one time, and if he catches it, and it's going to be a big spot. But right now, yeah, I agree with you on the Rangers. They're a disaster. The Dodgers are unbelievable. They really are unbelievable. They're going to win 110 games. I have no question in my mind. Tonight they play the Mariners in Seattle. It's still weird to me when I see the Dodgers are playing the Mariners. I think interleague play is kind of like it's done. Can we stop doing it? But
I love it. I love that every so often you get a random little 2-game series of just some random ass team from the West or the Central. I kind of like it.
Well, that's exactly what this is, a random ass team from the West too.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see there's a way the Dodgers. In baseball, you can't say it's a guaranteed win, but I like the Dodgers in this one. Although Sheffield, let me talk about Justice Sheffield. That was one of the Yankees prospects that was like, we couldn't trade Justice Sheffield. And like, I'm glad they got rid of Justice Sheffield. The kid's, he's small, he's average. There's nothing about him that's special. And he's got an ERA approaching 5. He's about to get shelled tonight, and I don't even feel bad about it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Another kid, though, another Cleveland arm that was highly regarded before the Yankees got him, too.
And I think the problem, so pitching prospects, I think two things can be true at once. One, teams give up on pitching prospects like way too soon. Like some of these guys, you're giving up on a kid when he's 22 years old. He's not going to reach his prime until he's 28.
Yeah.
Right? So there's that. And then the second thing teams do is you take a kid and, you could have moved your organization forward, but you didn't want to trade a prospect.
Yeah.
And, you didn't want to trade Justin Sheffield when you could have got top dollar for him, and you end up getting less, and he turns out to be an average pitcher. So
I think Erod's a really good example of that too. Eddie Rodriguez with Boston. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's an ace. He's a really good middle of the rotation guy, and he has been. He's got injury issues. He's kind of unreliable, but they traded him for half a season of Andrew Miller, like 5 or 6 years ago, and he's been, for better or worse, a staple of that rotation ever since. Mm-hmm. And it's a perfect example of they just, for whatever reason, Baltimore was that one weird season where Baltimore won the AL East a couple, like 2016 or something like that. And Baltimore thought they had it, and they gave him away. And he's been a really serviceable pitcher ever since.
He has. He does. There's no question about it. And to give up a rental reliever, I mean, really.
Yeah.
My all-time favorite player is playing tonight. Yes. So Jackie Bradley Jr. and the Bucks Padres tonight. I thought the Padres would get off to a better start than they have.
I think they've seen a lot of the Dodgers in the early goings.
Oh, that'll happen. Yeah, that'll happen too. Musgrove's been lights out, and he's on the hill tonight. So what do you think about that there?
I'd go Padres all day. The Brewers have been surprising. They've played a little bit better recently, but I love. It's kind of like the Angels. I love that San Diego team. Tatis is back in the lineup, which I don't think he should be, but they don't want him to miss time or as much as possible, and it is what it is. So I'd go with Padres on that one.
Isn't it early in the year to stop making guys play through injuries?
Yeah, especially when it's a shoulder, and more importantly, it's a labrum tear that he apparently has done before or has like a history of doing this. We're basically swinging out of his socks, tearing his shoulder or his labrum. I guess it's not the first time. This is just the first time it hurt really bad. So I don't know. Yeah. He's too young for them to be screwing up his shoulder like that, especially playing short. He needs to be able to throw. Right,
because part of the appeal to him is playing short. If he can't throw and he has to go play second, then he's just a second baseman with power.
Yeah,
that's you kind of want him to anchor your entire team. What else? That's it for tonight. So there's only 3 games on the West Coast. We're going to start to record this thing earlier so we can get the East Coast games. What I see today? Oh, Starlin Marte hit the disabled list today. He's off to a really good start too. In Miami, and he hit the DL today. That 10-day DL, teams use it for whatever they want to. That's why I'm surprised they didn't keep Tatis on it.
Yeah, it's just weird to me. It's a fractured rib too, so that's going to be he'll probably be out longer than the 10 days, which sucks because he has been a kind of a bright spot for that team. I mean, I don't want to go back to Tatis, but it does just bother me that that originally it was like, oh, it's a labrum tear, could be out for the season, and he's back 10 days later. Like, let's at least reinstate. It used to be what 14 or 15 days? I think it was 15 day.
15-day DL, yeah.
As I said it, I was like, oh yeah, that's how it just rolled off the tongue from what it used to be.
And if you got put on the 60, that was it. Then it became droppable in fantasy. But this 10-day DL is more like it's like a rest period. I feel like our league. I've been petitioning the league for 2 more IR spots, and people, some of the guys voted against it or don't want to hear it because I feel like they think people will just stash too many bodies on the IL.
Yeah.
But when you have this 10-day DL, what am I going to do? I can tell you right now, I got like 5 guys on it. Well, Marte just hit the DL. Colton Wong hit the DL. Danielson Lamet is on the DL, right? So that's 3 guys right there. So we have 2 spots. Am I supposed to drop the guys?
Yeah, exactly. And you can't, because they're guys that you don't want to drop. They're guys that are going to help your roster and your rotation out, longer than those 10 days. And you know that if you drop them, somebody else is going to scoop them right up
in 5 seconds.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've been trying to say, let's get 2 more spots, but you can only use them for guys on the 10-day. Like, because I would be one of the guys. Trust me, I'd be one of the guys. I got Luis Severino and Snide got on my DL right now, but to have some flexibility with that 10-day DL, because teams are using it in that way where they're just giving a guy who's banged up a week and a half off and then getting him right back in there.
Yeah, it is a lot of people, a lot of injuries already. Even the team I was just playing, the kid had both of his IR spots filled up, and 3 players that were either on the IL 10 or day to day.
And it's hard. And then we still haven't had. I don't know if we're going to have in baseball. I think they would probably like a total COVID outbreak. I think we're done with that. In baseball, they're playing outside anyway, so I don't really feel like it's. I don't know. I have my own thoughts on COVID but if a team has an outbreak and a bunch of guys have to get quarantined for a week, that's going to cause hell in fantasy baseball. Really. Yep. Let's go over some teams. We'll start with the obvious. The Red Sox are just scoring 1 million runs a night. So they're going to be the first team in baseball to get to 100 runs before. They're ahead of the Dodgers. They have the best offense in baseball right now. Is it sustainable?
The offense is sustainable. The offense was never a question with this team going into the season. In fact, actually, the way the offense looked that first series where they were swept was when people were like, whoa, they were supposed to be a lot better than this. What's not sustainable is the starting pitching. I'd like to think that Erod is going to give you 6 or 7. I say he gave up 3 runs. His line's going to say 4 because Whitlock gave up a run that was charged to EO. But it's that starting pitching. Erod might pick it up. He's kind of coming back from missing last year and having dead arm. But it's the bullpen is not going to sustain. Although Whitlock, he's thanks by the way. He's been looking really good. So it's possible, but they're probably still going to settle somewhere in the mid 80s at the end of the season for win total. And I hate to say it, but I'm trying to be realistically about it. It's been a hell of a watch, but they're not going to win 9 out of 10, 11 out of 10 out of 11 games the rest of the season.
And I'll tell you what, Eovaldi's look good. See, the thing with Eovaldi is I feel like he gives up bombs, but he gives you innings. Like he's a professional pitcher that'll go out there and give you. He'll give you a solid night's work if he's not getting rocked. I know were they not talking about making him a closer? Foolishness.
I never. It was floated, but I don't think the team ever seriously considered it. If his arm's stretched out and he can give you innings, I wouldn't convert him. But he has this stuff where you would want that at the back of your bullpen.
Yeah, just because he throws gas.
Yeah,
he does. But right now, to me, it's hard to get guys to fill these inning spots, which is why you have all these effing teams using openers and middle reliever games and all that nonsense. So that's all I got to say about the American League East. Right now, the Yankees are terrible and the Red Sox are good. So we're going to leave that aside. I thought the Blue Jays would be better. They're under 500. I think they will be over 500 when it's all said and done. In the Central, I thought the Twins would be much better. Right now, the Royals are 9-5. What do you think about the Royals?
It's another team that I don't think is going to be able to sustain their current winning ways. It's a great story, but they still have young pitching. They have young guys that aren't proven in that starting rotation. There's just very little to let me believe that they're going to be able to continue. They haven't lost a series this year yet, and they went 5-2. I think last week against the Angels and the Blue Jays, which are teams that should be beating the Royals. They don't have a lot of firepower in their lineup. They're kind of what they were before they won the World Series, where they were just a middle to bottom of the pack team with talent, but it's young talent. So I'd see the Twins are going to end up flipping that script and taking that division, or the White Sox.
I think so too. I agree with you about the Twins. I thought the Twins would win the division coming in. There's just something about Kansas City baseball where they seem to find when they're not terrible, but like you take a Kansas City team like this, don't you feel like they'll find their way into the mix because they just play a good brand of baseball that somehow like wins games?
Yeah.
Their lineup, there's really nothing going on there. Benintendi has been absolutely terrible.
Yeah, he's been horrible.
I don't know what I thought. See, typical New England, they thought he was going to be Yaz. I thought he was going to be at least Trot Nixon, and I don't think he's either one of those guys right now. He's just not good.
Yeah, I agree. He's in his head. I think he's just he's probably thinking too much about having been traded. He's reading the news. He's paying attention to what the media is saying about him. The kid has talent. There's a reason he was the 7th overall pick. He was, I'm pretty sure he was whatever college player of the year or something like that. But he was a great prospect. And even when the Red Sox traded for Chris Sale, I said that they were either going to give up Yoan Moncada or Andrew Benintendi, and please don't let it be Benintendi. And they gave up Moncada, and honestly, I don't have fun with Moncada. I'm sure he'll be a great hitter one day. Benintendi helped him win a World Series in 2018. But yeah, he's got talent. I think he needs to get out of his own way.
I think he tried. I think he tried to be somebody he's not.
Yeah, like, he bulked up.
I think he could have been a 218 with 17 home runs and 85 RBIs and just fill the box score. Like, I feel like he could have been that guy. And then when you want to go try and hit 35, you become pull happy and try and hit 35 home runs, and it's not you. It ends bad. Like, not everybody can be a power hitter. And
yeah.
I feel like that's part of the deal with him. What's going on with Moncada? Is he in the big leagues? What is he doing?
Yeah, he's with the White Sox. He's actually been putting together some pretty good seasons too. If we're being honest, I don't think he's lived up to the hype. It's not. It hasn't been there for him this year, but he's come around. Especially over, like, let's see, he hit 350. Yeah, 2019 he hit 315. 25 homers, 79 RBIs, 10 stolen bases. So he's slowly coming around. But I don't think he's ever going to live up to the hype that he had when he was in Boston.
From a hype standpoint, you would have thought he was going to be the next big thing. Like Hall of Fame skill set.
Yep. Yeah, there were a lot of people that were angry that they traded him. I was angrier that they got rid of Kopish than you finally have a guy in your system that can throw the baseball as a starting pitcher, and you're going to trade. But again, neither here nor there. I love Sale, so it was good. But yeah, Moncada could end up being a superstar. He's kind of put it together, but he hasn't found it yet, and he needs someone better than Tony La Russa to help him unlock his potential. I'll tell you that much.
Speaking of baseball guys, you were talking about how A-Rod loves baseball. My buddy met Tony La Russa at some kind of charity golf tournament or whatever, and he said La Russa will talk to anybody about baseball. Like, he just loves baseball. The problem is he's a 78-year-old guy from days past, and Moncada is a 23-year-old guy who doesn't give a shit. Yeah.
I think they need someone like Cora over there that can connect kind of with the different just the different type of player that's in the game right now, the different ethnicities, backgrounds. There's a huge Latin infusion in baseball right now, and it's making the game so much better. But there's also a lot of still older, stuck in their ways coaches that can kind of ruin those kids by, you got to play the game the right way.
It's just like everything else in baseball. They're so slow to come around. But Cora is not Cora himself, but Cora types are the future of the game. Like, that's what you're going to have. And I think you're going to see some of these catchers. I think you're going to see Molina, some of these guys who are well respected in that Latin community, that are good communicators and leaders. That is the direction you're going to want your franchise to go in, as opposed to giving Tony La Russa another job, or some of these other guys that, just keep, the Dusty Baker types that just keep getting recycled and recycled and recycled. You see it in the NBA. They were quick, right? Every point guard of the 90s has a coaching job if they want it right now.
Yeah. Evan Turner already got a job.
No kidding. Yeah. And, Sam Cassell's out there. He's on someone's bench. These guys, they get jobs, and they communicate with the players. There's a lot of respect there. So, the Cora type, Tony La Russa, though. What a good baseball life.
I do want to mention, though, so I know obviously you're not a Red Sox fan. I'm assuming you didn't watch the game today. They were down 10-4 in the 7th inning, and they were already throwing position players out on the mound. Yerman Mercedes, the breakout star of the year so far, pitched an inning today, and it blew my mind. I mean, yeah, you're down by 6, but you're putting in position players. You got 14 pitchers on the roster. Like, play baseball.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
He takes a line drive off the kneecap, or worse.
Exactly. Or
he's got to cover first. And he has to come down off that mound and something he doesn't do. That's not good.
See, and I'm thinking even what if he just tries to throw a fastball harder than he really can? But he's like, oh, I'm pitching now. Let me throw a fastball. Tommy John surgery, you're out. You know what I mean? It's because it's especially Mercedes. He hasn't caught this year, but he is technically a catcher. And it's more common for catchers to have Tommy John injuries because of how often they're throwing. So it was just, and it's one of the reasons why you see a lot of position players throw knuckleballs, because they're going to throw something that doesn't require a lot of work. It's not
just trying to survive the inning.
Yeah.
But at this time, I mean, we're in the middle of April. I don't think your bullpen could be worn out, right? You don't have a guy who can go out there and give you an inning.
Yeah, it was, and then they put second baseman Danny Mendick out for the 8th, who was throwing knuckleballs. It just made no sense to me. I don't know. Interesting.
In the West, Seattle leads the West. Oakland's on an 8-game winning streak. They're on fire. I still think it's Houston's to have. It's going to be a battle in the West. So I feel like the West is going to be the most competitive all through the season in terms of the American League. What says you?
I love Oakland. I also love the Angels. I love so many teams out in the West because there's so much talent out there. But I've always been a fan of some of these guys on the Athletics. Watched one of them no-hit the Red Sox. They've got position players. Jed Lowry. I mean, dusting that chestnut off. I mean, he's all of a sudden hitting like he's 24 again. Matt Olson, who I picked up in late rounds as my backup first baseman to Pete Alonso, has been on fire. And he's a heavy-handed power bat on the left side who hits mid 240s, 250s that people were passing on. So I picked him up, and he's been hitting better than Alonso. Chapman, perennial. I mean, if Nolan Arenado isn't in baseball, Chapman's the best third baseman in baseball. There's so much talent on that Athletics team. We were talking about Liriano earlier. Mark Canha, another kind of Swiss Army knife kind of guy with a little bit of pop in his bat. It's Mitchie Two Bags out there making some noise for him. I mean, that Athletics team, I think is probably going to end up, if their starting rotation holds out, which it probably won't, but if their starting pitching can give them some meaningful innings, that could be a team to watch out for in the West outside of the Astros.
I'll tell you. So Colton Wong was my second baseman. He went down, and I picked up Jed Lowry, and I only picked him up because I knew I would get at bats out of him. Really, I didn't expect anything out of him because I don't know he's been around forever. The guy gets a hit every day.
Yeah,
he consistently puts the bat on the baseball. He's not one of these guys that strikes out a million times either. So he's on the bases. He's got the ball in play. The game today got postponed, but yeah, he's been cool. Oh, Paul Goldschmidt's homer tonight.
It's proof that there's something going on out in with the Mets, because he went to New York and he was awful. Lindor's gone out to the Mets. He's looked awful. That franchise it's bad news.
It's freaking cursed. Yeah, I feel like outside of Texas, those 4 teams are going to battle it out like the whole way through. It's going to be fun. Speaking of the Mets, National League East, we got about 10 minutes, so we'll just go through the National League real quick. The Mets do have the best record in the NL East. Is that sustainable?
Oh no. I mean, they're decent. I mean, they always have talent. It's never a matter of if the Mets have talent. It's just a matter of can they get out of their own way. Let's do it
a better way. All 5 of those teams are terrible.
Yeah.
Like really, the Phillies don't excite me. The Marlins, I mean, although there's a couple good sneaky fantasy plays on the Marlins.
Well, the Marlins are on the come up, as the kids say.
Yes,
I think the Marlins are about 2 years away from really contending.
I picked up a kid from the Marlins, middle infielder type. I'm pulling up my team right now because I forget his name, but yeah, he's been good. The Marlins, Marte going down for 10 days. That's not going to help him because he's definitely their best player.
Yeah,
but Adam Duvall's got 4 home runs.
Yeah, Duvall. I mean, the kid. He's another guy who could hit, but he was just a homer guy with. He was with the Braves. He really came along with the Reds a few years back, and now all of a sudden he's refining his swing. There's been some nice surprises out there.
That division right there only has one team with a positive run differential in it. It's Miami of all the teams. I feel like there's talent in Atlanta too, but that's a bunch of teams fighting for 85 wins to get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
In the Central, Right now, the Reds lead. They're all jumbled up over there in the Central. Who did you like coming into the season? Who do you like now?
I mean, I always have a thing for the Cardinals, and I'd still stick with them. I think that they were one of the only teams that really went out this off season and made an effort to get better. Anytime you add a guy like Nolan Arenado to your lineup, like you're trying to compete for a while, especially after adding Goldschmidt. So I like the Cardinals. I like the young pitching on the Cardinals. It's another team that somehow always seems to have young talent in the pipeline as coming up as pitchers. So Jack Flaherty, that kid is going to be a stud, I think. With Jordan Hicks coming back off Tommy John, Alex Reyes, Giovanni Gallegos, their bullpen is ridiculous. I absolutely love the Cardinals. They got young kids too, Harrison Bader and Tyler O'Neill. I could go on and on.
I'll tell you what about the Cardinals. They're a professional franchise. The Cardinals have never sucked. As far as I can remember, going all the way back to the 80s, I feel like the Cardinals have always been good enough to be in the conversation at the end. Where are they winning 8 World Series? No, of course not. But they're just a professional organization that continues to put a good product out there, year after year after year after year. And you're right, they are trying to win. They are definitely trying to win while the Yankees are trying to save every nickel so they can sell lobster ice cream for $39 in concessions. And
I'll tell you what, with the Yankees right now, what's killing them is that Giancarlo Stanton contract. He looks good on paper, but imagine if you had that amount of money that you could allocate to another starting pitcher.
Yeah, really. The other thing with the Yankees, you got the Hicks, Judge, and Stanton are hitting like $150, and that's the top of the order. So pretty much every game starts out with it starts in the 3rd inning because those guys just don't hit in the first 2 innings.
Yeah.
It's so effing frustrating. But you're right. That contract is bad. It was bad. The second they signed it, you already knew it was bad.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, he has the best highlight home runs in baseball are from off Stanton's bat, though. My goodness.
It's scary. When he makes contact, that ball explodes.
Like, did you play baseball? Were you a good baseball player?
Yeah. Good's a stretch, but I played baseball.
All right. So I started playing men's softball a few years ago before I had kids. And one thing I will not do is play third base in men's softball. I'm just not going to do it because I'll play the middle infield. I'm fine, whatever. I'm not playing third because I'm going to get killed. I can't imagine where I would stand if Giancarlo Stanton was batting and I was playing third base. Like, I don't know where I would stand.
Deep in the hole, hugging the line.
That's it.
Like, you have a chance to throw him out when he's running. That's about it.
Those guys are crazy. And then to me, in the National League, the West is going to be terrific all the way through. The Dodgers will probably win the division, but I think the Padres are a really good team that can make the playoffs. And the Giants, I don't think, suck. What do you think?
I want to see what the Padres look like next year. I think this year it's going to go to the Dodgers. And it's going to, like you said, it is going to be competitive. But what the biggest missing piece to this is one of the best pitchers in the American League prior a couple years ago, Mike Clevinger, is now on the IL in San Diego for Tommy John. So as good as they're going to be this year, they're going to be, especially in the pitching department, even better next year once Clevinger can come back and start throwing some meaningful innings. But when it comes down to it, though, it's the Dodgers. It's going to be the Dodgers. It has been the Dodgers, and they probably have the best chance to repeat of any team since the late 90s, early 2000s Yankees. That they are just stacked, scary, deep, any name.
Mm-hmm. And they're not old. They're not old. They're young too.
No, it's young. Andrew Friedman is an absolute master for what he's done with that franchise.
And for them to be as loaded as they were, and then to just go grab Betts,
yeah,
it's like, they're trying to put together a dynasty. Is what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
and have all the pieces are in place. To me, on paper, they look better than the '90s Yankees in a lot of different areas. And they're the team to beat in baseball. To me. By the way, Evan Longoria is playing well over there in San Francisco. Did you think Evan Longoria had any more at-bats left in him?
No. I've always kind of wished he did, and he's kind of done this before, where he's been spurts of strong play. But it is nice to see him continuing to put meaningful at bats out there on the West Coast, because it's another guy that was on an enemy team, but I absolutely loved him. Every time there was nobody on that Rays team that you feared, except for when that lefty stood up to bat, and you're like, please don't throw him anything low and inside.
I mean, he had 4 years where he hit over 30 home runs in San Francisco, in Tampa.
Yeah.
I feel like he got old fast, though.
Yeah, I agree.
It just happened quick, and then he was done. Where he was at one point, I thought he was going to the Hall of Fame. I think everybody did. Like this kid, he was unbelievable. And then
injuries are a hell of a drug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, injuries are no good. So that's going to conclude tonight's show. We hit on the teams. We went through the games. We went through some players. Who needs a host? The host, King Mike, if you're listening. But we want passwords ahead of time. We want to know ahead of time so we can prep. Right now, as an update, St. Louis is beating Washington. Boy, Washington used to be good, and now they're not.
Yeah, I mean, it's Washington. I mean, they won a World Series, and at the All-Star break, they were like 20 and 30 something, or 30. They were like 10 games below 500. So that's it's kind of what I guess I'll end with it. It's one of the best things about baseball is that it's such a long season that no matter where unless you are just an awful team in an awful spot, no matter where you are, you still have a chance to make the playoffs and make some noise.
It's true. So the Yankees were 5-8, and somebody posted on Facebook about how it's the first time the Yankees have been in last place, whatever nonsense. But the last time they were 5-8, they ended up winning 103 games.
Yeah,
because of baseball, and you can get hot in the middle of summer when people are at their cookouts, and you can go win, 14 out of 16, and the cream rises to the top in our game. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, as a diehard Red Sox fan, I'm not fooled in thinking that this is how the standings are going to look at the end of the season.
No, but I'll tell you what, it's been fun, and it's good. I don't mind when the Red Sox are good enough that people talk about them on the radio, because I can't listen to football talk on EEI. They're doing Tom Brady talk like too much.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'd rather hear about the Red Sox. I honestly would, because at least it's a bleeping current event.
Yeah.
Talking about, the Tom Brady draft of yesteryear. But anyway, that's going to do it tonight from Legit Fantasy Baseball. Stay tuned. Next is Legit Fantasy Basketball. That's going to start about 8:05, ladies and gents. Joey, have a nice night. I'll talk to you next week.
You as well. Thank you.